The Rogue is one of the classic American rivers. It starts at Crater Lake and flows through the Siskiyou Mountains to the ocean. And the wild section of the Rogue River that everybody knows about is one of the best river trips in the country. It has great rapids, amazing wildlife, and is really full of history and a lot of cool places to stop, creeks to hike up, and is one of the special river trips that we have in this country.
This whole roadless wildland that's around the Rogue is actually a core area of habitat. And that's why you're able to see so much wildlife when you're down on the Rogue River. It's actually a source population.
The Rogue is such an interesting river trip for wildlife. I've been on a lot of different trips from a couple of days to several weeks, and I've never seen so much wildlife on a river trip than I did on the Rogue.
The wildlife is what makes the Rogue the best. I mean, it's special because there's so much wildlife here. But really what makes it special for most people is the bears, being able to see bears on a regular basis. The Rogue itself is a pretty warm river, so a lot of the salmon and steelhead can survive in that warm Rogue River water. But they do survive because the creeks bring a source of cold water in.
You'll see a lot of times fish will be pulled up around the mouth of those creeks because the fish really need that cool water. So while the river might be a little warmer and the fish need the cool water, those creeks that are coming in are very important, especially down that low in the river basin where the water's really warmed up. So in the summer months where we might have some issues with warm water, those cool creeks are critical for salmon.
Those creeks are the lifeblood of the fish. There's tons of side creeks in the Rogue, and it has a ton of great hikes. So you can walk up all kinds of side creeks, and the Rogue River Trail follows its entire length, so you can hike any part of it.
The Rogue, as a destination for recreation, it's not just for boating. You have the Rogue River Trail, which is about 30 miles long, in use for a good part of the year by hikers and backpackers. And you definitely get a different feel up on the trail than you would, say, down in the river. And so there's hiking, there's boating, fishing, bird watching, you name it, you can do this on the Rogue.
The Rogue's a pretty magical river. The Rogue is just pretty awesome.
The Rogue, it's one of the first rivers that was designated as a wild and scenic river when the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act was passed by Congress, so it's one of those original 8 rivers. It kind of is a testament to the special qualities of the Rogue. So wild and scenic rivers really, they only protect a quarter mile on either side of the river. So when you're floating down the Rogue and you see, you're in this canyon and you're looking from the river bottom up to the ridge tops, you don't realize that a lot of that area is not protected. So there's been a lot of efforts to make sure that we protect that whole ecosystem that is the Wild Rogue. The area that we're talking about, the Wild Rogue, is this 3 to 4 day float trip that a lot of people do. It's roughly 40 miles, and when a lot of people put on and they launch off, they're in this roadless area, but they don't realize that it's completely unprotected. For those first 20 miles or so that you're on the river, in your wilderness river trip, you're actually surrounded by completely unprotected lands. All there is this quarter mile wild and scenic protection along either side of the river. That's an area that a lot of conservation groups are really working to try to make sure that it's protected. So the proposal would essentially take what is now roadless area and just designate it as wilderness. And under the Wilderness Act of 1964, that would essentially preserve that wild character of that place and make sure that there's no development or roads built in there or otherwise compromise that unique place down on the Wild Road. As a father, I'm really looking forward to taking my kids down the Rogue so that they can experience that, so they can get away and just have a flavor of what it is to be in the wild, and what it is to be in touch with nature. And it's a part of ourselves is in that nature. And I think it's an experience that that everybody needs to have, is to be able to get out into a wild place like that and just reconnect with our roots.
Yeah, in general, having these wild places and these wild lands is essential. We have so much of our environment built up, roads and development and housing additions. And to be able to leave that, to go to a place that's free of human development is critical. Humans have this inherent biophilia, that we have this attachment to nature, whether we know it or not. And we all, I think, can experience good feelings when we go out onto a trail or onto a river, a place where we don't hear mechanization and it's just the birds and the animals and the wind.
Without our nature and enjoying what we have in front of us, adding a bunch of development, adding a bunch of commercial business, adding a bunch of houses, you have to have areas like this that you can just go through and enjoy. Fish, float, camp, you can't ever lose that. This is where you come to just enjoy nature and take it all in.
The Rogue is just a magical place. Something about it keeps me coming back and wanting more. I don't know what it is. It's beautiful.
The Rogue is where my heart lives. There's lots of rivers out there that I love, but the Rogue is extra special to me.
There's few and far between places like the Rogue.
Getting away from it all, getting out on the river, you slow down, you take a moment, you find yourself at peace in a way that you really can't experience anywhere else.